All right, we're rolling live from outside the survival pod. This is Freedom Phil coming live from the wasteland here. And here's the question. By the way, for all the people say, you never show your face. I've shown it many times, just like I am now. Will Islam and people's conversion to it just be like people converting it to it just to go along to get along? And I see this and I say this because, the demographics are kind of noticeable. Let's get into it. Yeah, Freedom Phil, like, subscribe, and hey, turn up the video speed. Why do I say that? Because, hey, watch videos faster. If I choose to upload this, watch it at 1.75. Why? Because we're video faster. And also, this is not a channel for children. I talk about all sorts of wild adult things, about, things that, like, these are topics that are not for kids. You should actually have a childhood and enjoy your childhood and not have this crazy internet. Not to mention, I am not your child's nanny. And if you're using a TV screen, a cell phone as a way to avoid you being a parent, you're a shitty parent. Yeah. Let's get back into the topic. I was listening to people talk about this demographic change that everybody's known about for ages. Like, for instance, in Europe or UK or frankly anywhere these people show up, they're not, doing what the usual American thing of having, we're thinking about having a child, not a family, a child. One kid, maybe two. Now, I'll give Mormons and Mexicans credit. I've often said if you get a Mexi-Mormon hybrid, you will see similar demographic numbers to what we're going to talk about. But like where they have like 6 to 8 kids, because they are big on family in certain communities. And I think if you want to be honest, we want to keep on running this Ponzi scheme that we call America and Social Security and all the other crap, because that's what it is, taking money from one group to pay for the other. You constantly need another group. Now, there have been many people that have said, the slow demographic replacement and bringing in broke people. And part of the problem is a lot of these broke people that come to this country, they literally just get on the welfare rolls or whatever benefits you have in your particular countries. And they're not actually really contributing. And you think about that for a second. You're like, well, why the hell are you having so many people? Well, all that doesn't really matter. And the boomers are like, but you see, there's ethnic food and it tastes so good. Yeah. I'm just being honest about it. The future doesn't belong to what's right. What's right is arbitrary. What's right is decided by who's there and who's voting. I mean, that's the flaw of democracy to some degree, where, look, you can believe in whatever you want, but at the end of the day, if they have more children than you, they're going to vote the beliefs. I mean, even if they're not even the most devout, they will vote in that kind of general way. Just like once upon a time, hey, America was full of Native Americans, and now it's got far less of them. Their beliefs have gone not quite the way of the dodo, but like Christian Catholicism and whatnot has kind of taken over in a lot of places. And as that's kind of waning away, just like it's doing in Europe, other ideas are slowly taking over. So the future belongs to who votes and the children of those who are around who have lots of children. So I could very well see the world eventually going towards kind of I could see Islam becoming the dominant force religion eventually, and then eventually, inevitably, a self-defeating prophecy of when people get bored of it and it gets watered down in certain cultures, or it gets so rich and blasé that it goes the same path as Christianity. And if you don't believe me on this, look at how many other religions, like pantheons of gods or just single gods or regional local religions that came and went based on the people that were in power then enforcing their religion, and then the people that, basically had control having way more children. And eventually apparently whatever God can deliver is forgotten about or just written off into history. And it's kind of some cool cultural stories. And then, whatever's replacing it becomes the dominant thing. And why? Because most people need their sky genies to get through the day. I don't. I think it's all nonsense. But I could see a lot of people in a world where, the majority of people start becoming that group, converting just as a means of going along to get along. And that's really the topic. And I say this because I remember the Satanic Panic. I remember how crazy people got, and sometimes you just gave lip service to whatever craziness, and they say, well, it'll never happen. Well, back during the Satanic Panic, they never said gay marriage would be a thing, and yet it is. They never said all these different things that would come to pass would be a thing, and here we are. Here we are in the modern world, and those things are a thing. Now, I remember back when people said, the whole, like, the Democrats, they'd never do this or that, blah, blah, blah. Well, then the Democrats took over, and you had to give lip service to their kind of ideological nonsense, no different than God's to some degree. Like, this is our beliefs, this is our church of wokeness. And how many people, just to go along to get along, agreed with the church of the woke? They didn't agree with it in their heart or their mind, but they, just like with the joke of communism, we don't care what they think, just as long as they do what we say. How many people in the Soviet situation just did what they had to get by through the day? And so if I eventually see, it could happen in my lifetime, where Islam takes over, you say Europe or the West or whatever. And by the way, look at some of those rich oil nations over in the Middle East. They're not all the same. One could argue if some of these other countries in Africa got their shit together and it stopped being tribal warlord stuff, or some of the other countries like the Taliban and whatnot in Afghanistan, these countries could be prosperous as well. It's just a matter of getting rid of that stupid tribal mentality and bringing in some law, order, and some decent business to where people have a stable life. We could actually see that eventually people are just like, well, Christianity was a thing back in the day and remembered from the history. No different than Zoroastrianism or the Greek pantheon or the Nordic pantheon, And what about the forgotten gods all over the world where you'll see sites like sun gods and all sorts of stuff, forgotten names that unless you're actually a researcher of such things, you would never know about it. In the same way that look at how many people were once in North and South America, and now, well, their beliefs are just barely spoken of, maybe between the elders of their people, barely trying to cling on to their language and whatnot. And so when you think about it, I could see a lot of people just going along to get along, and then eventually the watering down of Islam. I could see that happening. And honestly, it's kind of like the Iran situation. Certain countries literally are why Islam has a bad name. Certain countries. Because you see all these other countries, they're even more modern than America. But that's a lot to do with oil money, in the same way that you could see the Nordic countries, they're rather secular, I think the word would be, that they're advanced and modern because of a lot of oil money or whatnot. So, from my perspective, yeah, the future belongs to whoever has children. And why do we do this whole Ponzi scheme nonsense? Well, that's simple. Because the current generation doesn't want to pay their fucking bills. That's all there is to it. They don't want to pay their bills, and they're perfectly happy to enslave the future. So in the purpose of a comfortable life now, it's like the man, bear, pig equation from South Park. They're signing the deal that you'll have to pay for in the future. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm like, whatever. I've talked about in the past, you can be retired in America by the age of 30. All the struggle that people go through it's self-inflicted. You make the choice to be that. But, it's like trying to raise the tide by pissing in the ocean. And, you can lead those that are intelligent, but you can lead a fool to knowledge, but you can't make dumb motherfuckers think. And they'll come up with their magical excuses. It's this group. It's that group. Fuck it. That's all your problem. That's the common borns. That's you. That's your problem. But understand, one day when you look back at the world you remembered, much like that Jonathan Goldstein recording about the guy that made golden calves for a living, how even though he converted to the new dominant religion, it was back when it was a story about Moses. It was all sorts of funny. In his heart, he'll still look back and remember the religion of his childhood, the culture of his childhood. But the future ultimately belongs to who has children and those who vote. And if you're only having one children, no children, or any of them, your culture will be taken over unless you do something about it. And also, the boomers and older Gen X never have to suffer. Rather ironic, isn't it? Anyhow, peace.